Possibly the best thing that happens during the holidays happened the other day.
What's that?
Well, it's kind of a big deal. Tara's like, hey, I got to bake some cookies tonight. And I'm like, okay, got to bake cookies. Not something she says. Oh, it's the thing. And
what's the thing? What do you?
The thing is the cookie swap with all the moms. There's like a bunch of moms that get together, and Tara's in there cooking the 7-layer bars that I love so much. And she cooks, I think it's 8 dozen cookies, which is a ton. And then she goes to this lady's house, and they have this little get-together, and then they swap the cookies. And then Tara comes back with just all the cookies you could imagine. You know, imagine like the biggest donut box you can imagine.
Okay, I'm doing that now, yeah.
But you can still carry it. And,
okay, so let's be reasonable. Sure.
Yeah, reasonable. And then fill it with cookies. And everyone, so like you get like 3 cookies of each lady's favorite. So I've got 2 cookies now that I'm eating.
Wait.
Go ahead.
I'm going to throw out some types of cookies.
Yes.
That I don't know what they're called, but I can just describe them from having seen them, and you tell me if you have them.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have the whole box in front of me. I'm just going to have to go for memory here.
Okay, I'm picturing a cookie that is about 2.5 inches across, and it's a darker brown. It's just kind of a glob, and then jammed right in the middle of it is a Hershey's Kiss. Do you have that kind of cookie?
Oh, I know the one you're talking about. No. What I'm going to say, you're not going to believe. That's probably too simple for this cookie swap. Yeah,
well, it is the South.
That's like the amateur hour cookie.
Wow. Okay.
I'm sitting here. I got 2 cookies. Didn't know what they were going to taste like before I got them. One of them looks like your basic sugar cookie, but it also looks like a peanut butter cookie. But when you bite into it, it's lemon, and there's almond crumble on top.
What?
Yeah, I know, right?
I am but a practical man of the West. We don't do things like that here.
Oh, dude.
We avoid being slaughtered by bears.
Dude.
Primarily. There's no time for that kind of stuff.
We're like 4 days away from the cookie swap, and I've been saving this one that I just took a bite of. It's
Wait, you're 4 days out from it or 4 days away from when it occurs?
No, we're like, it happened 4 days ago.
Okay, so it's like the equivalent of November 3rd to Halloween.
Yeah, basically. And
okay, got it.
Such a dumb way of saying it, but so funny. But also very clear. Thank you. So I've been waiting on this deep, dark chocolate-looking cookie, and it's got like what I thought were white chocolate things in it. It's not. It tastes like an Andes mint bar.
Ooh,
but it's real chewy. Like dude, it is so amazing. It's one of my favorite things about Christmas time. But anyway, Tara did great. She made what we call the 7-layer bars, and we're not allowed to have a full, like a full tray of these at our house because I will just sit there and eat them with milk. They're like, got some coconut, got some, I don't know, toffee. It's amazing. You guys don't do this?
That is sophisticated.
Yeah, you don't do that in the West?
I don't know. Probably people do. When I can't relate to cool things that you do, I like to just make it sound like it's because of how tough and gritty we are out here. But the reality is, I might just not do cool things all the time. Maybe sometimes I'm just boring. Surely people make cool cookies out here. I mean, you got to change how you do it because of the altitude. Maybe that's it. Let's go with that.
Let's blame it on the altitude. But that's one of the things I love about the South is like, dude, when I was getting married, there's this guy. You know how there's a person that you can tell that the old man wisdom is just about to hit you right square in between the eyes. He says, "Hey man, let me talk to you about you got engaged, right?" I said, "Yes, sir." He was my old baseball coach. He goes, "Well, let me tell you something, and you write this down if you need to." I said, "Okay, what is it?" He goes, "Loving don't last, but cooking do." And I said, "Mr. Phillips, what does that mean?" He goes, "Well, it's like this. It's like eventually all this sweet loving you got right now," he's like, "that's going to change." And I guess the way I would describe that is, you go from this mostly eros type love, and you move out, you're physically attracted to each other, and it transforms into something more like storge and agape. That's a nice way of saying it, but the way he said it is love and don't last, but cook and do. Meaning she if she can cook, she'll always be able to cook. So that's what he told me. And so in the South, I think it's a really big deal for the younger ladies and the older ladies to kind of work together on that. And yeah, I got some buddies that can cook. They cook really good. I don't know what are we talking about today. I'm sorry, I'm just telling you about cookies. This was great though.
No, I find myself very intrigued by it, and I'm jealous. But man, I think the cookies you're describing are too sophisticated for me. The Christmas cookie I like the most and that I find myself wanting right now is your standard issue stocking shaped sugar cookie.
Yeah.
With just exactly the right amount of frosting on the top and a nice little crisp, like just a golden brown crisp around the edges. I don't want the full soggy sugar cookie. You bite into it, it's crispy, but you get right to the very middle and there's just a little bit of tenderness to it right there.
Let me tell you who is a cookie savant, like somebody that really cares. Bob Clagett's wife. Amazing.
Really?
Yes, dude. It is not a joke. Her and I, we see eye to eye on the importance of cookies. She can make a mean chocolate chip cookie. It's great. They make things in that family. They do. He likes to make stuff. So we were in we went to visit them one time, and they were remodeling the kitchen, and she didn't have her full oven. And so she had this little air fryer kind of thing, and she made these cookies, and I'm just going to level with you, dude. I was like, I think she burnt these cookies. So we're at their house. She sees it. Sometimes I make little Instagram stories about eating chocolate chip cookies at night, and she's like, I'm going to make you some cookies. She did, and I look at them in the oven. I'm like, oh, man, she burned them. What do I do? I can't tell her she burnt the cookies. I got to eat this cookie and pretend like I like it. And then the weirdest thing happened.
Think you could have another.
Yeah, that's my rule. I took a bite of the cookie, and it was amazing. She had to overcompensate because of her cooking device so that she was just like, you know what? We're just going to forget about how it looks. We're going directly for taste. And she made an amazing cookie with a subpar cooking setup. I was very impressed. It was fantastic. Really chewy on the inside. It looked like it was burnt, but it wasn't. Still haven't figured that out. But it was fantastic. Anyway, Mrs. Claggett, you make a mean cookie. Mean is good. You make a great cookie. I guess I need to make sure there's no ambiguity there.
I really like what you're describing, though, in terms of that's one of those stand on the shoulders of giants who came before you kind of thing. If everybody had to learn everything about how to make something delectable and beautiful in a culinary sense from scratch, I mean, in the literal, in the figurative sense, from nothing. If you had to start from zero every generation, that would be horrible. Dude. But food, that's really one of the things that connects us across generations. It's one of the things that outlives us recipe-wise. Have you seen that holiday Coca-Cola commercial they're running right now with the dude who's trying to bake the pie?
No, I like making pies.
Dude, I
don't
like commercials. You're good at making pies, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah, you want to talk about somebody who's got a nice touch. You got a nice touch. You make artful pies, Destin Sandlin.
Thank you. They're all cherry pies, and I just scoop stuff out of a can into it. It's just really
is there another kind of pie? Come on.
Point.
It's just a Coke commercial, and it's just this guy, and he's clearly trying to make a pie, and it's clearly not his strong suit, but his mom is there walking him through it, looking over his shoulder and nodding and everything else. He gets the pie out right as holiday company gets there. It doesn't look perfect, but it's in earnest, and he gets an approving look from his mom right before he goes in to greet the company, but then the camera pulls back, and you realize that mom was only in the reflection of the mirror and that she's gone, and she's memorialized above the fireplace where they're eating.
I'm going to tear up, man. Stop it.
It got me.
I didn't see that coming. I was like, oh, yeah, mom's going to read his stream. Whoa.
Yeah. But
wow, that made me feel things.
Just some of the little points of connection with the people we love who came before. It's sneaky like that. And so at first I was like, cookies are good. And that's just one more thing to busy yourself with during an already frantic time of year. And then you talked about that connection, the younger ladies, the older ladies, and what your wise old sage baseball coach told you. And I was like, huh. No, there's something to that. And I much better appreciate that people take the time and energy to pass along these traditions, to pass along these flavors. So many things that we pass along to each other come in the forms of things you hear or see. That's something that you smell and taste, that you actually physically internalize, that is a gift from someone else. That's pretty special.
It is. She's in a group they call themselves the Titus 2 group. It's interesting because they strategically make these groups where you'll have some older ladies in there with some just from every generation, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and they'll arrange it so that they have people from every generation in there. And so when Tara started being in the group, it was a really big deal because you have people that are just a little further down the road than you are, right there. I thought it was impressive. I thought it was really cool.
This episode of No Dumb Questions is brought to you by HelloFresh. Destin, is there somebody there?
Yeah, I have a special guest with me here. This is my oldest son. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, so you gonna get right up on the mic a little bit. Now say it again. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Can you hear yourself in the microphone?
Yes, sir.
Is this your first time speaking on a microphone like this?
Kind of.
Okay. Very good. Yeah.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm very good. I have a sneaking suspicion I understand what your dad is doing here, man. I'm guessing that he's roping you in to talk about making HelloFresh with him. Am I anticipating correctly?
Probably.
Well, to be clear, you said you were okay talking with this about me. It's actually different than that, Matt. My son actually is, I would say you're the champion of HelloFresh at our house. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
So would you just explain to Matt like what it is and what, like, you don't listen to No Dumb Questions, right?
I listen to it when I'm in the car with you.
When I'm doing the preview listens, yeah, you do.
When you're forced.
No, that's true. So tell Matt what your relationship with HelloFresh is, because I haven't told him a lot about what we do.
So weekly, HelloFresh will send a box and it'll have 3 different meals. And then it will send you the ingredients inside of a bag along with the meat, and it will tell you what you need outside of the box. And then it will give you simple instructions to make the item, which the other day we ended up making like pork katsu or something like that.
Yeah, pork katsu, which is something I'd never heard of.
I've never heard of it.
No, me neither. I've heard of the pork part.
Yeah, so he actually cooks this all the time. So it's not uncommon for me to be like, oh man, we need to eat real quick, and then you'll just go get it out of the fridge and you'll just whip it up, right?
Yes, sir.
What's your favorite thing you've cooked so far?
Seriously.
Well, I think it was last week. We cooked burgers with Old Bay seasoning. It was really good.
You liked it?
It was amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. So he's doing a really good job with it, dude. So yeah, very proud.
Okay, I have an emotional question for you.
All right.
How does it feel cooking for your family? Does that conjure an emotion for you, or is it just a thing you do?
I find it really fun, and I like cutting up the stuff. That's my favorite part of it.
Why do you like that?
I don't know.
You just do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's made you better at cooking in general? Like, do you think you're learning stuff and improving?
Yes, sir.
It would have been weird if you'd said no. Just so you know, I would have cut that out. If you said no.
No, he's doing good. What is our? I mean, obviously it's good. Do you think it's good for our family? So,
Yes, sir.
yeah. Why do you think it's good for our family?
Because we're not stuck eating Hamburger Helper all the time.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to allow it because you know we're recording. You know how I feel. All right. So the joke is the other night I did my best to try to feed us for the minimum amount of money possible. And so I went to the grocery store, and the best I could do was hamburger helper. I've already told you this, I think, man. But it was
yeah, you have.
yeah, it was interesting.
It was a noble effort.
It was a noble effort. But you do prefer HelloFresh?
I do prefer HelloFresh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe just let the kid handle the food from here on out.
Yeah.
It seems like he knows what he's doing.
I'll do that.
Real quick, did you see that they're doing a festive eats thing right now where you can get different holiday-inspired recipes and little seasonal bonuses and add-ons and all of that to fit with the time of year?
Oh, I wonder if they have a cookie recipe in there.
Yeah, the deal is that if you go to HelloFresh.com/NDQ18 and then use the code NDQ18, you get 18 free meals plus free shipping, which is a lot of food.
That is a lot of food. One of the great things about HelloFresh is if you're going to be on travel, you can pause the shipments so they don't come to your house, and so you don't have to worry about wasting that food. You can just have it delivered later. And at any time, it's fun to look in our fridge and just see that we always have an option there because, hey, we've got HelloFresh. Typically we have like at least one HelloFresh sitting in there, would you say?
Yes, sir. I think right now we have like trout or something.
Do we? Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Is it trout or salmon? Do you know?
I think it's trout.
Okay. Awesome.
I mean, they're kind of related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're both fish.
It's healthy, too. It feels better when we eat HelloFresh than a lot of the quick garbagey food that we'll just get on the run. And time-wise, really, by the time we run out and get quick garbagey food that we know is bad for us, we could have just made a HelloFresh and be feeling great afterwards. And we have learned that lesson over time, that it's just the better option. So on top of it being healthier, it's convenient. It fits into our schedule at this point.
Yeah, that's it. HelloFresh.com/NDQ18. Use the code NDQ18 for 18 free meals plus free shipping. Thanks for being on here with us, buddy.
Thank you.
Hard pivot from holiday cookie conversation, which was far more intriguing and appetizing than I had anticipated. Thank you for that. I'm going to go make a cookie type thing happen in my life now this holiday season. I'm inspired. But question, and I mean, this is a hard pivot, brother. Okay,
how hard are we
got
talking?
The mechanism cleared? Yeah, it's hard. It's a lot. Like, let's go from that to like existential thought about the nature of your existence. Cool?
All right, let's go.
All right. I guess all existential thought is about the nature of your existence. It's right there in the name, but whatever. How do you conceive of your life? What is the mental image that you have of the unfolding of your life?
A circle.
Okay.
And the way it works is there's this circle, and I've got the stuff. I don't know. I think of it two ways. I think of it as like a wheel touching a road. I kind of think of it. I think of the top of the wheel almost. So the things that have already rolled by, that's like the past, and the things that are coming up is the future. And then the moment where it touches the now is the now. And so the only moment where I truly exist is right in the moment where it touches eternity. Does that make sense? Is that what you're asking?
How many people in the third chair right now do you think were taking their pointer finger and making a wheel gesture and picturing how wheels hit the road and which rotation moves the vehicle in which way to follow
none.
what you were describing? Well,
None.
I was.
No, I mean, the tangent point is the point at which, I don't know, I think of time as this medium through which I travel.
Okay.
And there's only this one moment where I exist, and that's the now. And then there's the stuff that's already passed, and the stuff that's coming up in the future. Is this what you're asking?
Wow. Interesting. Yeah.
It goes
I
deeper
think
than
so.
that.
It's just what you said is very, very different from how I would answer the question.
Well, there's this other thing to it. Like, I think about people in my past, like my grandfather, my dad, and my dad's in my now. But like, well, let's talk about my dad, for example.
Okay.
My dad, it's almost like his circle or his wheel has rotated a different total angle than mine. But we exist right now. Like, his now and my now both exist, but his wheel has rotated farther than mine. And so I think of this life experience that a person has as, you know, the unraveling of their life. And for example, my grandfather or my great-great-great-grandfather that I never met, if I were to somehow be able to recalibrate those wheels and roll them back, and I were to be like, okay, that right there is 41 years. That's where Destin is right now. Let's take his great-great-grandfather's wheel and bring it up here, and you could rotate it to where it says 41 years for him, and line them up in the now. I would love to have that conversation. Just me and him, the person, I don't even know his name. If we were to sit down and have a conversation as 41-year-old men, that'd be awesome.
Yes.
For example, my son, I love him dearly. I've got two sons, but, you know, just pick my oldest one because he's going through the most change in his life right now. I love him dearly, and the only thing that separates his life experience and mine, there's a lot, but the only thing really, is that I'm just a little further down the road than he is.
Mm-hmm.
But I respect him just the same. Like, I would love to be his friend. Right now, I'm his parent, and that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
But I'm imagining a time where when he's got, more of his life is enrolled and more of my life is enrolled, we can speak more like peers because we both got more road behind us, and, that those differences in age don't matter quite as much. I don't know if this makes any sense. How do you, what was even the question? How do you visualize the unraveling of your life, Matt?
Is that how it sounded when I asked?
No, it's not. It just sounded like you were pontificating, and I was trying to figure out how you said it because it was a really big
sounded
question.
Silky, like with a lounge singer in the background, and like you were wearing a smoking jacket. I liked it.
I was imagining the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland is what I was imagining.
Okay.
Speaking of
I
which,
see him in a smoking jacket.
I think when my life unravels more, I'm starting to consider, like, in the far distant future, I can imagine myself smoking a tobacco pipe. I can imagine.
Do you mean unravels or unfolds? Because unfolds means that stuff went well and you had good health and more time passed. When I hear unravels, I more think like everything went south and heavy drinking.
Forgive me, I'm not using the correct word. I mean unroll. Like unroll, not unravel, unroll.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so like I'm imagining this progress, this unrolling of my life along time.
So if things go well, you may one day smoke a pipe. If things go poorly, you're probably not going to smoke a pipe.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Okay, cool. Yep, I think I'm tracking with all of that now. You asked how I conceive of it. I thought you were going to give the same answer I'm about to. So your answer surprised me, but it shouldn't. That you would use an analogy from a mechanism, something that can be engineered for efficiency and predictability and also artistry and elegance. Hey, of course you would latch on to an image like that. Of course that's how you'd visualize it. It makes perfect sense. And of course I would visualize mine as a narrative, a story where I play a character in other people's stories and then they contribute as characters in my story as well. And it's not one singular narrative. There are a lot of different stories that I might latch onto for a season of time, or, imagine some kind of tragedy if I'm reeled down, or some kind of triumphant hero story for a minute if I indulge my pride after something goes right. But for the most part, I just think of it with the basic beats of a typical story. You start off and there's all kinds of adventure and potential in front of you, but you don't really know what you're doing. And then there's some sort of call to adventure. And in my case, like most people's cases, it's just you get a little older and then you have to go do things at some point. And then you meet other characters along the way, and the friction between the motivation of you and the other people you meet, positive, negative, in between, that fuels a lot of the action that makes things go. And the action isn't always Marvel style action where you've got direct, overt, eye-popping on-screen stuff happening. Most of the action is in the life of the mind and the shared life of the mind and the soul with the other characters. But definitely there's a beginning and a middle and an end. And as a result, there's a little bit of grief baked in to the divides between the acts and to where you're at percentage-wise as you imagine the unfolding of the story. Maybe it's a little slavish. Maybe that's what Don Henley meant when he said we've been poisoned by these fairy tales, that maybe our stories write back on us too much, but certainly stories have written back on me and how I think about things. But maybe humanity has always been writing stories, and so our shared experience created stories, and then stories inform back on us what the reality of the human experience is from the dawn of time. But yeah, for me, there's no mechanism. For me, it is overwhelmingly some kind of narrative flow. Does that surprise you?
No. I'm trying to decide now if that means that the way I visualize it is more self-centered because I'm only thinking about my wheel or my circle, so to speak. Like
you didn't say you were the hub.
No, I don't know. I'm just trying to think about it. So you think about yourself in relation to others. I'm just thinking like my life going along, like a fuse burning. Like I've got an X amount of life, and X minus T is how much I got left. So
Another mechanical example.
you know what I mean? I'm just, I guess
I do, and it's a good analogy.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of how I think about it. Interesting. What is the thing that you and Amy were talking about that time? You said something about there's a story arc, and you said there's a hero's story arc. I forget what you called it.
Yeah. Joseph Campbell is a mid-20th century, what do you call it, a narratologist? I mean, he was a dude who thought about psychology and storytelling and literature.
The hero's
But
journey.
I think
that was it.
Yeah, I think his most famous work is The Hero of a Thousand Faces. It's something like that. I mean, it's a pretty famous book that lots of people continue to buy and read. It really informed George Lucas when he was crafting the first Star Wars film and that whole universe. I think his idea is that he went and looked at a whole bunch of myths from all around the world, religious storytelling, fairy tales, just all the stories people tell. And what he found was that there were some very common elements that seem nearly inescapable. And he postulates that these elements are always there because they are reflective of humanity and how we reckon time and aging and relationships and intersecting with other people on this time continuum. And so the journey of these stories, then it looks like you're going through places and challenges and going to chase after the MacGuffin or whatever. But really all of these things are a metaphor for the search for self, the search for meaning, knowledge of self, to know and be known, all of that kind of stuff. And because people are wired the same way, he theorized, or fairly the same way, these same elements keep cropping up in stories all over the world for millennia. And those elements include certain types of characters who crop up, but also certain motifs of storytelling. And so when you talk about Campbell's narrative theory, you're talking about character archetypes and just story structure archetypes. And not everything fits neatly into that, but most of the stuff that feels right going down when you watch it probably fits into that somehow.
What hero archetype? Are you the hero of your story, I guess is what I'm trying to say?
Hero and main character don't mean the same thing if you're talking about different sets of archetypes. So Aristotle had a list of archetypes that he thought were present in story, as well as a couple other even older, famouser Greek philosophers and fiction writers before him. Campbell is a distillation of Aristotle and Menander and a whole bunch of stuff that happened in between, including like Arthurian legends and all of that. But that's not the only one. Carl Jung, he's Swiss, right? The 20th century
I don't know.
Psychologist, like the associate of Sigmund Freud. I think he's Swiss. I don't know. Don't quote me on that one. But he did a whole bunch of work on a whole bunch of different things. And I think Jung's big thing was the idea of actualization isn't the right word, but it's this awareness of self, this getting to a point where you understand self and you become connected with a lot of the human archetypes that make us what we are. What was his term? Individuation. That's the term. His psychology focused on what he called individuation. And so storytelling, he believed, was a big part of this. And so the Jungian archetypes, they're a little different list than the Campbellite archetypes. Campbellite, that's like a religious movement. I don't know. Campbell's archetypes, they're different. And maybe not as universally observable in film and literature as Campbell's archetypes, but maybe more observable in the people you meet in everyday life. So Campbell says there are about 8 archetypes in stories. Jung, I think, has 12. and there's a lot of overlap between the two. So if we're talking about the Jungian archetype structure, hero is just one of the 12. And I'm gonna reel them off because it's pretty interesting here. Hang on a second.
Okay.
I got this. Yeah.
You just said a lot, and it's very difficult for me to keep up. But
sorry.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Sorry for all of that. But you get the gist, right? Is that there are common threads to storytelling.
Yeah.
And that different quality thinkers have tried to make sense of that, either through a psychological lens or through a literary analysis lens or through both.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. The Jungian archetypes are the innocent, the orphan, the hero, the caregiver, the seducer, the rebel, the lover, the creator, the joker, the mentor, the magician, and the ruler.
Okay. I'm looking this up now. There's an image. Jungian archetypes. Jungian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. This is.
Yeah. Did you come across his wheel of archetypes?
I'm looking for it. It's like a. I'm seeing it on images here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're seeing. Describe that to me when you pull it up.
It looks like a color wheel.
Okay.
And it says it's divided into quadrants, and it's also divided into, each quadrant is divided into 3 groups. So, I don't know if is this his wheel? Like he came up with it?
I think that's an extrapolation, but I think it's faithful.
It's very hard to explain what I'm looking at with an audio-only medium here. So to show these 12 things on one graph, there's 4 quadrants. Top right, a spiritual journey. Bottom right, leave a mark. Bottom left, connect to others. Top left, provide structure.
And each of those 4 categories, the Jungian structure of thought about character archetypes, each of those 4 categories has 3 archetypes where that's what they're trying to achieve. So leave a mark. Well, which of those archetypes would be most interested in leaving a mark? The innocent, the orphan, the seducer, the hero? Like clearly the hero would have to be on that, in that quadrant, right?
Yeah.
Who else do you see there?
The magician and the outlaw.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes you'll hear the outlaw called the rebel or the rogue.
Yeah.
In terms of film and storytelling, you know that archetype, right? The rebel, the rogue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give me some examples. Who comes to mind?
Han Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rebel, the rogue.
Mad Mardigan, Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine.
I mean, the rebel or the rogue, it's the hero with the heart of gold.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a buddy who says Deadpool fits into that category.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. So let's just pick a random character. So let's say, I don't know, Inspector Gadget. So, I don't know. That's about...
Okay, not the seducer. Probably not the seducer.
Probably not the seducer.
Okay, all right.
He's the hero. That's what he is. He's the hero.
Yeah, maybe he's the Joker?
A little bit, yeah. I miss Inspector Gadget. I need to go watch some of the old cartoons.
Yeah, I do too. That was good stuff.
I need to do that. Okay, so what are you? I think I would be, for me, I feel like the everyman. That's what I feel like. That's what I want to be anyway.
What does the everyman want?
It's in the connect with others, or connect to others quadrant.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's where Peyton Manning said that he wanted to be. He wanted to be known as a good teammate when asked at the end of his career how he wanted to be remembered with all of his achievements and everything else. I want to be a good teammate.
That's a good answer. Yep.
It's
a really good answer. What about you? Where are you at?
Well, respectfully, I'm not sure that's how it works. I think it depends on the question in relation to who. Like, who am I in relation to Camilla?
The lover.
Yes. Selflessness, passion, self-sacrifice.
Could be the magician.
Driving motivation is to know and be known, right?
No, the magician.
Yeah,
I think you'd be the magician in relation to.
Yeah, I could see that too now that you mention it. But who am I to my kids or a couple people who I know from, maybe work or something like that, or the kids I coach? Well, I think I'm the mentor. Like there, even though I'm no Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm playing that role. I'm the white bearded, calm, steadying character in their life. But I don't conceive of myself as the mentor in my own story. But in the story of others, I think that's the role I play, for better or worse, maybe the disappointing mentor, but certainly that. In other environments, wow, I feel resonance with the rebel, the rogue. Yeah, I think rules are a little bit overrated. I am definitely on the chaotic good quadrant, and I super resonate with the people who are like, yeah, I don't have time for the stupid rules and all of this. I want to do good. I'm going to go try to do good. And when I screw up, well, we'll dig out of it. When we dig out of it, I might not be good at it, but I feel resonance with that kind of character. Do you feel resonance with the rogue, or is that foreign to you?
Not really. No, I don't. I'm kind of a rule follower.
More than me.
I guess that's probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true, actually.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, but the thing is also, I play the role of the innocent, depending on who I'm interacting with. There are times when I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing shrewd, rogue, rebel, win with force thing here. I just want to try to do what's right and what's good. And one of the weaknesses of the innocent is naivete, vulnerability, losing at things you should maybe win at. But I play that role. And none of these are an act. It's just life and circumstances and relationships give us the opportunity to play a lot of different parts in different stories. I mean, it just depends on how you frame the story, or what little bit of the passage of time you clip out and who you point the spotlight at most dramatically. I mean, the same 1 week can give you a jillion different stories just all unfolding at once. And you're in a lot of those stories, but you do not play the same role in those stories.
Let's play a game here real quick. So
Yep.
If I'm sitting in the third chair right now, I'm probably pretty confused because you said a lot of stuff and it's hard to imagine ourselves in relation to other people. So here's what I'd like to do. Let's identify a person, and we're going to, as a thought experiment, we're going to say, who am I in relation to that person? And then I'll read off the archetypes, and then we can think about who it is. So who are we going to start with? How about our boss? Everybody has a boss. I mean,
Great. Love it.
Even if you work on your own, like if you own the business, you kind of have a boss because you're trying to make somebody happy in order to make money. Okay, to your boss, which of these are you? The ruler, the creator/artist, the sage, the innocent, explorer, rebel, hero, wizard, or magician, the jester, everyman, lover, caregiver. So what would be your answer there?
Not the seducer.
Again, yep.
Creator sounds right, just given my job description, but I don't think it's that. Wow, I don't know. That's very difficult, man.
It is. I have multiple bosses.
That's a tough relationship. Yeah, I don't know. How do you answer that?
Yeah. I think we should all say not the seducer to start all the time because it's funny.
It depends on what your job is.
So I would say for the YouTube thing, I would like to say creator artist. For the YouTube thing, I would like to answer there. For the thing where I do aerospace engineering, I would say in that capacity, I've learned a lot of things. So the word this one has is sage. It's a weird word, but I would like to say in that capacity, because I'm typically working with younger people and I'm helping them see things that I learned the hard way.
There we go. Yeah.
Yep. So I would say in that capacity, I kind of serve that role. And the other boss I have would be with school. And with school, I don't know. That's a hard one. I'd probably say the explorer, maybe. Like I'm trying to figure things out. I mean, in some cases, they probably think I'm the rebel because I'm not a full-time student.
Yeah.
I'm not a full-time student.
Yeah,
I'm
I think there might be something to that.
part-time student, right? Yeah, what about you? Your bosses?
That's tricky. Back when I used to work at a church, what an odd employment arrangement that line of work is. It's
Yeah, because you have to be the
tough to nail down.
the caregiver. When someone
Very much so.
Yeah, that is strange.
Yeah, I mean the orphan in a way.
Which one is the orphan? Because I'm getting
Harry Potter's the orphan. Frodo's the orphan. Well, heck, Luke Skywalker.
Is that the innocent? Because there are multiple lists, and I'm finding that these names aren't settled on.
Sure. I think the innocent is different from the orphan. I think the orphan is always trying to overcome, always has a little bit of imposter syndrome, wants acceptance, but they're an orphan. They don't have a family. And I think sometimes part of the relationship between a pastor and a church, when I used to do that, involves that. You're a part of the family of faith, but you're the only one getting paid. And you're the one who has to have the hard conversations when things get sideways or weird. So there's a survival instinct that kicks in. That's one of the characteristics of the orphan. Empathy, but also scrappiness. I think if you're pastoring wrong, you think of yourself as the hero in that job. There's just all the talent to overcome everything, but I think you're more onto something when you say the caregiver. The weakness of the caregiver is that they can be taken advantage of. The strength of the caregiver is they don't care. If you get hurt, looking out for other people or showing care.
That's so strange. You just said this. The sentence you just assembled is the strength of the caregiver is that they don't care. That's just an odd sentence. But what you're saying, you're saying is they don't care that they're taken advantage of. That's what you mean.
Correct.
I just thought it was an interesting sentence to say. But
right, they would die 1,000 deaths if they stopped showing care to other people, and the only way to prevent being taken advantage of or getting dinged up by the occasional bad actor is to fully insulate yourself and not care about anybody. I mean, you can't pastor like that. This episode of No Dumb Questions is brought to you by Audible. It's open on my phone constantly. I cannot get enough. It is filling all of the little gaps with knowledge and other people's ideas all the time. Man, I lean on this app heavily at this point.
yeah, absolutely. My family has been using all the Audible credits. You know, you get an Audible credit a month, and it's like, oh man, what am I going to use my credit on? And you know what? The last time I went to check, it was already used. And that's good. And I'm extremely excited about that because that means my kids are consuming audiobooks, and I love that. So yeah, it's a huge deal with our family. So what's the offer? It's audible.com/NDQ or text NDQ to 500-500. What is the actual thing you get when you do that, Matt?
You get a free membership for 30 days, which is the credit that you were just talking about. So you can go to anywhere in the catalog and get anything, new, old, whatever. You can use that credit to get an audiobook. But then in addition, Audible keeps building out their whole additional catalog, the Plus catalog, and I'm using that a lot. Classics, new stuff, topical, deep dive academic stuff, fun stuff for the kids. It in and of itself is more than enough to keep me busy, and then getting that credit every month to go in and grab something else. I mean, like I said, I have this on all the time.
Yeah, one thing I like to do is if you go to Audible and you just search the topic that you're wanting to learn about, go to the left and go to filter by and just click Plus Catalog. All these audiobooks come up that are free. They're right there in the Plus Catalog, and it's like, you use your one credit for the one thing you were thinking about that month, and then you just flip over to the Plus Catalog, and you can just devour all kinds of content. So,
like, imagine if you had 30 days coming up where you don't have a whole lot of obligations, you've got more in between time than usual, and you were like, I want to become super knowledgeable about this topic. The Plus catalog alone is going to get that done with that 30-day free membership that you get. You could just max things out and power stuff like crazy, and you could emerge from that 30 days for free as an absolute beast on that topic.
Absolutely. You've got like, dude, some of the classics are in here in the Plus catalog. Robinson Crusoe, Moby Dick, yeah, The Great Gatsby, all this stuff. It's here. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Things that you should have listened to in the past, but you haven't.
Yes.
Just go check it out. Yeah. Still got my son here. Hey, you know one of the things that's in the Plus catalog, buddy? Guess what it is?
What is it?
Animal Farm. Who just listened to Animal Farm?
I did.
Yeah, why?
Because you asked me to.
And who was your favorite character in Animal Farm?
Snowball.
Snowball the pig?
The pig, yep.
So why did I want you to go through Animal Farm? What was the idea there? Because communism has failed every time it's been tried.
Absolutely.
That's right. So
There's
do you
a
agree
real
after
problem with some
Yes, sir.
animals are more equal than others.
I had to write an essay on that in class today.
Did you really?
Yes.
And you knew it because of Animal Farm.
It was on my midterm.
Really? So you think you nailed it?
I do.
Yeah. So did you use things you learned from from Animal Farm?
Like the same concept.
Really? Okay. There you go. Audible.com/NDQ or text NDQ to 500-500. You, too, can have children who understand the virtues of communism failing every time it's ever been tried. Anything else you want to say, son?
No, sir.
Yeah, so if you want to try out Audible, and hopefully you do, you can go to audible.com/NDQ or text NDQ to 500-500 and get that free 30 days with Audible, and I think you're going to get an awful lot out of it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Audible.com/NDQ. Why did my voice go up at the end there?
It sounded really good. It made me want to do it more. My fingers were already on the keys. It's so weird, and I already have this.
Yeah. Go to the Plus catalog and check it out. I think you'll love it. Okay, so the Jungian archetypes is what you call it. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Jungian?
Jungian? Yeah.
So is the whole premise here, I don't understand really what it is, but is the premise here that you kind of play these different roles at different points in your life? I mean, obviously in storytelling, these are used to progress stories, but is that kind of what you're getting at here? Because
yeah,
we're in your world here.
For Jung, I think it's psychology first, storytelling as second, as a touch point. The individuation is the target objective. It's a way that you identify yourself as being your own thing. That's what he seemed to care about. Whereas Campbell's archetypes, I think, are much simpler, much more rooted in the historical stories. There are 8, and they're more orienting because it's psychology second, story first. For Campbell, you just got the hero, but hero is synonymous with protagonist. The hero is going to have all kinds of flaws, but the hero is the character who is the main driving force that moves the action of the story forward. But the hero can only go so far alone, so the hero is going to need a mentor. This would be the Jungian sage or mentor character. The hero can't accomplish all these things on their own. So with the exception of like John Wick, you just never see hero stories that follow the hero's journey where there's not help. And even John Wick has allies in an isolated hero rogue kind of story like that. So you always got the allies. You've always got your Sam Gamgee, and those allies are always named Sam. Sam in Game of Thrones, Sam in Lord of the Rings. It's just it's a warm name. Then in the Campbellite narrative structure, the narrative archetypes, you've got the herald. This is the character who shows up, might be a good guy, might be a bad guy, but they appear and they introduce the character to the journey ahead. They bring tidings, they bring news of what is going to shake the hero out of their static existence. Then along the way, you meet the 5th archetype, who is the trickster. The trickster isn't necessarily a bad guy, They spice things up. They make it fun. They subvert, and they allow the journey to go to places that aren't scripted and predictable. Merry and Pippin play this role in Lord of the Rings. Along the way, you will usually meet a shapeshifter. The shapeshifter is the one whose allegiances are vague and confusing. Maybe they are some kind of neutral alignment. Maybe they are a double agent. But in so many of these stories, if you really think hard about it, even if that one seems obscure, what comes to mind is, yeah, this person exists. The Guardian, or the Threshold Guardian, as I was taught to refer to this character, is Heimdall in Thor. This is the one who stands in the way of where the hero wants to go and represents a checkpoint. Usually there's a quiz or a test or a challenge that has to be overcome to move past the Threshold Guardian, and once that's achieved, there is growth. And then finally, the Shadow. The Shadow is the dark side of who the main character is, the evil or secretive expression. And so a lot of times in the hero's journey, the bad guy isn't totally a bad guy unto themselves. The bad guy is a bad guy in contrast and relation to the characteristics of the protagonist or the hero, which is why so often you get that, you and I, we're not so different. We should work together. What if we combined our... The Jungian psychology says, yeah, do that. Find your shadow, understand it, incorporate it. That's part of your process. The more historic mythic storytelling says, maybe familiarize yourself with your shadow, but confront it. And the shadow is something that has to be dealt with, but I think in the Campbellite understanding, it's a little bit more worrisome than in the Jungian understanding. So is that a simpler list? I mean, I think it is. Does it strike you as a simpler list?
I don't know. No, this is very complicated to me. This is
fair enough.
I want to play along. And be like, oh yeah, this makes so much sense. It's very complicated. And I'm sorry, but I know story's your thing.
But you know all of this. When you watch a show, somebody comes on screen and you're like, don't trust them. How do you know?
Well, I can spot the seducer.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are things that stick out there for sure.
Yes. So there's that, and then I can spot the magician normally.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, the character has to develop, and so you have to like figure out slowly over time. Oh, okay, this is But I don't instantly. Is this how you watch movies? You watch a movie and you're like, oh, that's this person, that's this archetype. Is that a thing for you?
Sometimes. More than anything, I just feel it. There's a rhythm to a story that can be really beneficial in life, but also you can inflict the rigid structure of story onto life and misassess people if you're not careful. Whereas in film or reading a book, there's very little consequence to being like, there we go. That's the ally. That's the one who's going to ride all the way down with our hero. And then later you realize, dang it, that was a shapeshifter. Well, who cares? Like, it just made the story more interesting and subverted some expectations. But in life, wow, you miss on something like that, or even limit someone to being just one thing, you can really pigeonhole them and resultantly mistreat them, think about them wrongly. It's not as simple. Look, if you go back through your life and you think about the 8 categories that Campbell provides, and you just assume yourself to be the protagonist of a story that follows your journey, you can probably fill in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters for each of these archetypes: the shadow, the guardian, the shapeshifter, the trickster, the herald, the ally, the mentor, even the shadow. I bet there are a couple of names that you could conjure of a dark version of yourself, attributes like yours, but not wielded in the way you intend to wield them. But yet you have to grapple with that and wrestle with it and try to figure out what to do with the existence of this other approach to life or ethics or whatever. I'm guessing you could fill in all the archetypes with people from your journey through life.
Yeah, absolutely.
What am I?
Absolutely. What are you?
Am I the shapeshifter?
Oh, yeah, you are the shapeshifter. You're not the seducer. You continue to not be the
I've
seducer.
been working out. I'm drinking a lot of milk, and I'm working out every single day.
What is the official list? What do I... Jungian archetypes.
Well, we're on Campbell's archetypes.
Campbell's archetypes.
Yeah,
okay,
Joseph
that's
Campbell.
my problem. Campbell archetypes.
Simpler
okay,
list.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's a simpler list. Okay, got it now. It took me a while to pull this thing up.
And all of these are predicated on the hero and his allies having to overcome something, change, grow, evolve through the influence of the mentor, through the challenges presented by the threshold guardian, and usually the downfall of the shadow, the villain, and the villain or shadow's agents. There's always a henchman. The bad guy always has to have help too. Their downfall is that they don't grow and change. They're too certain of who they are and what they are. And oftentimes their ability to grow and learn and adapt has become calcified. And it's the suppleness, the flexibility, the responsiveness to teaching and growth and good outside influence and discernment that causes the hero and the hero's allies to gain what they need to defeat this evil.
I don't know, man. I think I almost feel like this is an effort to neatly organize something that's extremely complex. It's like a continuum, and it's not discrete. That's a better way of saying it. This is an effort to discretize. Is that a word? Discret? I don't know. Turn a continuous thing into discrete elements. That's what it feels like.
Okay.
Because at times you're the jester, right? At times you're the rebel.
Yes.
At times you're the caregiver. When I just want to, I want somebody to hear me out. You're the caregiver. At times you're the sage when I ask you questions. The only thing, well, there's a lot of things on here, but I don't know. I'm not going to say I reject this because this is humanities. This is stuff you understand better than I do, but it seems like an overly complicated way to try to make categories that aren't as clean as this chart would have me believe.
I think that's a very fair statement.
Am I allowed to reject your thing?
Heck yeah. Seriously, you're just asking now?
Yeah.
As evidence for my okayness with that, I would submit the last decade. Yeah,
okay.
You're allowed to reject my thing. But let me just offer a little different set of categories and see if that reframes it for you.
Okay.
When people read the Bible, the book of Matthew, and they read Jesus' parable about the sower and the seeds, it's in Matthew 13. You know the one, but I'll remind you, and for the benefit of the third chair. The disciples are starting to wonder. They just started following Jesus. He seems really impressive. It looks like he can break the laws of time and space. He teaches with authority. They're very interested in him. But still, it's not exactly clear who he is or what any of this means. He's talking about some kingdom that transcends kingdoms of the world. So it's a big claim. And after all these miracles and stuff that he does, only some people are signing up and others aren't. And the disciples, no doubt, were confused, but kind of didn't know how to articulate, like, why, if this is the truest thing, why isn't everybody signing up? And Jesus gets in a boat and he tells them a parable. And in the parable, there's a sower, like a person who sows seeds. And he's got a bag full of seeds, nothing wrong with the seeds. He goes and he throws them on 4 different types of soil, one of which immediately rejects the seed. It's just hard, it's rock. There's just no chance. 2 other types of soil, the seed kind of takes for a little while, but then for various reasons it doesn't work out. And only on 1 type of soil does the seed really take and produce a full-grown plant that produces its own seeds and yields a harvest 30, 60, 100 times what was originally planted. Usually, when you hear people talk about that passage in church or any kind of religious setting, they'll be like, which kind of soil are you? Where do you fit? Are you the rocky soil? Are you the one where there are concerns and troubles and you get choked out by thorns? Or are you the good soil? But it doesn't look like that's the intended meaning. That wasn't the pressure that caused Jesus to tell the story. The pressure that caused him to tell the story was curiosity about, how's your whole Jesus thing going to unfold through history? Is everybody just going to run out and sign up? Will people be against it? As soon as somebody hears it, is it like magic and then they become a Jesus follower? Or does it work different? And so the parable, I think, really does a great job of clarifying that. And history seems to vindicate the accuracy of what Jesus was saying there. Likewise, when we go and look at these character archetypes, the most automatic, natural way to interpret it is, who am I? Which one of these is me? But the better way to interpret this is to say, the robust story of our experience and the human experience has these familiar elements in it, and maybe the categories aren't absolutely complete, but the role that any given person plays at any given time in any little micro story is going to be one of these things, or it's just going to be indifferent background character who doesn't do anything. But every engaged individual who is growing and actively involved in any given story of any scale, I think Campbell is suggesting, is going to kind of fit into one of these categories, but that's just for that story. And then there's the next story. And the story at the cash register might be a different story than the one in the parking lot. So it a little bit becomes, it's not about, do you have these characteristics? Like, are you funny like the Joker? No, it's about, these are the characters who provide impetus to make a story go forward. And stories don't tend to go forward, or the kind of stories that we repeat anyway, don't tend to go forward unless you have all of these character archetypes in them to prompt action that only their archetype can prompt to move the stories that we repeat all the time forward. So it isn't a personality test. It isn't even about the attributes of the character. It's about their role in relationship to the narrative and how they move it forward. In the same way that Jesus wasn't saying, hear my parable of the soils and think about what kind of soil you are. I mean, that might be a fine exercise. He was saying, understand this bigger story and how each of these soils is one part of the bigger story. Here, I think to rightly understand character archetypes, what we're saying is, it's not a personality quiz. Each of these character archetypes is a little fragment, a component of what is necessary to move a story worth repeating forward. So it kind of takes some of the pressure off to figure out who you are and where you fit, and it gives you a mechanism to better appreciate the elements of powerful, timeless storytelling.
Yeah, one thing I did when I looked at the list is I was like, okay, well, you brought up Jesus, and I was like, oh, wow, Jesus is all of these things. And I was thinking about how Jesus is sovereign. You know, he's in control, but then there was a bit of magician in there, and then there's creator, explorer, and I'm looking at all these things like, wow, Jesus was all of these things. And then I started thinking about my own life, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of the sovereign over my children. I'm kind of the explorer. You know, I like to learn things. And then I went through it, and I was like, oh, I can see how I'm all of these things as well. If I understand what you're saying, I play these roles in other people's lives if I have any type of meaningful relationship with them. I'm not just an NPC.
Right. You are in
like,
some
so
stories.
I,
Sometimes you're an NPC. You're a background character
Yeah,
who drove by in the back of a shot.
Right. But it would be good to think about what my role is in other people's lives and try to play that role to the best of my ability. Is that what you're saying?
I do think that if there is a personal application here, beyond just better latching on to the grand story of humanity that we are a part of, if there's a specific application, yeah, I think that's it. You know what role you're playing in whatever given little story is unfolding in front of you right now. You know what the weaknesses are of that character, what the strengths are. And if you want to be a character in the story who does things that are good, you try to understand what the good outcome is and how to be the best that that archetype has to offer. Sure, I think that's great.
Huh. Okay, so tell me a time you've been the magician in somebody's life. Surprise, powers of perception, intuition, and cleverness.
I think I play that role when I am solving other people's problems with nothing to gain for myself. When I look at somebody else's thing and they've been laboring over it for months or years, and I'm like, we just got those two things in the wrong order. Flip them around, see what that does. And they do it. And they're like, what? How could that be? And it's not because I'm brilliant or smart. It's just because I hadn't looked at it. and it just needed a fresh set of eyes. But yeah, I think that kind of strategic observation, applying previous knowledge or experience to that situation, spur of the moment. Yeah, I think that's what it looks like. What about you?
Yeah, I had a conversation with one of my sister's friends one time, and then they said, man, every time I have a conversation with you, it's like a shockwave. And I think about it for weeks. And then I was like, what?
That's not the first time I've heard that about you.
Well, whatever. And so I thought back on the conversations, and I was like, I did not think a lot about that conversation. We just had the conversation, and it just happened to be the thing we were talking about. I happened to have some life experience that played into what they were talking about. So to that person, I felt like a magician, but I'm not. So I'm not a magician. I don't imagine myself to be a magician, but in that person's life, I kind of played that role. And it wasn't me. It was just what they needed to hear at that moment in time. And it just happened to come out of my face hole. So very interesting. So I'll think about this. So read the list one last time so I can think about how I'm playing these roles to different people.
Okay, so 2 lists that we're going to read. This first one is the Jungian archetypes. That's the 12 we've been looking at. The magician is on that list. And this is the list that is psychology first, narrative second. And this is the list that is a little more built to think about the roles you play and where you fit. On this list are the innocent, the orphan, the hero, the caregiver, the seducer, the rebel, the lover, the creator, the joker, the mentor, the magician, the ruler. List number 2 is narrative first, psychology and where you fit into it second. This is Campbell's Hero of 1,000 Faces, Hero's Journey. The distinguishing point of these 8 on this list is not their characteristics, it's the role that each of these plays in moving forward a story. You need all these elements, or most of the time you need all these elements to make a story worth repeating work. 1, the protagonist or hero. 2, the mentor. 3, the ally. 4, the herald. 5, the trickster. 6, the shape shifter. 7, the guardian. 8, the shadow.
It's pretty hard for me, man. This is a stretch. Just thinking about this stuff is a pretty difficult stretch for me. So thank you for stretching me.
Well, going deep into your world does the same thing. I mean, for crying out loud, we did an episode this year called What is Calculus? And I got you and Grant Sanderson in the room talking about just wildly complex stuff. And I know how much my insufficiencies were on display. But at the same time, I felt like I learned some things. I felt like I saw a few more patterns coming out of that. And I also came away feeling like it's okay if this isn't my area of expertise abstractly. And I think the same thing here with story structure. To me, the story structure thing, it's not like some little side thing. To me, this is one of the meta explanations of, like, this is central to the human experience. This is a gigantic deal to who we are. And the stories we tell are more than just like fun little make-believe things. It's very significant as we work out life and death and God and love and all of the things that go into the human experience. Really, that's what both you and I are trying to tackle, just with differing disciplines. And sometimes I feel a ways out of my depth when I get too close to your stuff. And I think it's okay if it takes a couple conversations to wrap your brain around this stuff.
It's hard, dude.
Where I wanted to end up was the exact distinction we ended up making, and you led us straight to it. Is this a personality quiz, or is this something that holds up a mirror to the human experience? But I think we got there, and I think that's interesting.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for presenting it to me and being willing to, I don't know, talk to me like I'm a peer and understand it, even though I don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's good for something to be just out of my grasp, I think.
Yeah, that's where the growth happens, and that is the mark of the hero and the interesting character. Life with chapters. You grow, you change. And I appreciate you over the course of this last year of making internet stuff with me. Like, you play that role in my life all the time, and I'm really grateful for the way you push me.